It's wonderful to be in the studios here at Flow with Penny Pratt, the member for Frome. How are you, Penny?
I'm really well, Ricky. Thanks for having me in today.
It's a pleasure and great to have our guests in the studio with us. Sometimes we have to catch up with you on the phone, but lovely to have you at our Roseworthy Broadcast Centre. You're visiting a local school here as well shortly too.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. Primary school around the corner, won't be long.
Yes, and Roseworthy, certainly with its college, is a centre for agriculture, and agriculture knows all too well the importance of biosecurity. You've been picking up a lot of conversation, it's hard to miss, about foot and mouth disease in the electorate at the moment.
Absolutely. Well, as a country Liberal member, I'm talking to farmers all the time. We know that primary production contributes $31 billion to the South Australian economy. So anything that we can do as Liberal Party members to advocate for primary producers is always important. But foot and mouth disease is certainly the topic front and foremost for farmers nationally. Obviously, the federal Labor government are currently responsible for our biosecurity measures, but talking to farmers, that they're certainly concerned that should the disease come to our shores, then that cripples a national economy to the tune of $80 billion. I think that would be a conservative measure.
Yeah, it's been challenging from a media point of view covering this foot and mouth disease situation because, first of all, we've had to keep underscoring that we are foot and mouth disease free and have been for 130 odd years.
Exactly. I think that is very important, and I'm happy to echo that we do not have foot and mouth disease in Australia, and we want it to stay that way. So anything that the federal Labor government can do through Minister Watt to be vigilant, to support our biosecurity officers at ports and airports to ensure that whether it's through shoes and tourist traffic or food particles coming through luggage, that we don't miss that one opportunity to grab it, should it appear, destroy it, and protect our economy, our agricultural economy. It's an insidious disease. No farmer ever wants to put down one animal on their property. We've seen the vision from the United Kingdom going back a decade or so. The terrible fires on Kangaroo Island meant that farmers were having to put down livestock. No one should want this to happen. As of last week, Minister Watt shared with the general public that there is a 12% chance that foot and mouth disease might come to Australian shores. I would say we can't afford for it to be 1%. We cannot have this disease arrive on our shores. No hysteria is helpful, so I certainly wouldn't want to be adding to a catastrophising situation, but we must take it very seriously.
Yeah, like you say, the hysteria is a concern because we talked to Wool Producers CEO Joe Hall on Friday from the national body, and even with wool, because greasy wool is potentially exposed if we do have an FMD-free status loss. She said that there is panic in the market. We've seen that with the cattle and the sheep prices, but also in the wool market, which is in recess at the moment, because farmers are being influenced perhaps by the commentary and that 12% analysis that you mentioned. The opposition here have said you want more signage or action taken at Adelaide Airport in relation to making sure travellers are well aware and even stopped when it comes to foot and mouth disease possibly coming from Indonesia.
I think education is really important. We are nationally focused on the tourists that post-COVID are loving getting on a plane and going to Bali, and we want to preserve our relationship with Indonesia. It's made up of lots and lots of islands. There are 34 provinces in Indonesia, but it only took 2 months for foot and mouth to spread across 22 provinces. Experts predict that the entirety of Indonesia will experience this disease. So I think it's important to strike a balance between educating the public who are travelling back and forth to Indonesia, make sure that they understand the implication to the economy that sustains them. If we experience foot and mouth disease here, if we have a breakout, then people should understand that what they lose is no milk, no cheese, no yogurt, no roasts, no meat. The impact to a city person's lifestyle is on the line if we are complacent about this disease. So we must remain vigilant. The Liberal opposition at the state level certainly understand there's an education opportunity at the airport to ensure that people understand what the risk is.
Okay, well, moving from animal health to human health, you are the Shadow Minister for Regional Health Services in South Australia, in the Spears Shadow Ministry. You had an important health forum at Gumeracha, I believe, recently.
Yes, well, thank you. It's really important to be able to talk to your listeners again about regional health services that affect us all. I'm also the Shadow Minister for Ageing and Wellbeing, and I think those three combined together really stitch together what it means to live in the country, to manage anxiety and frustrations about the weather, which we can't control. Certainly farmers' well-being is of great importance to me. But in reference to Gumeracha, there are a number of emergency departments in our country hospitals that remain closed, and that is a challenge for the doctors that provide that on-call support to hospitals and the LHNs, the health networks that play a role in coordinating the contracts and the service. So Gumeracha, which is in the electorate of Schubert, have been a really vocal community in advocating for their emergency department to reopen. We should all understand the implications of COVID, where an emergency department is attached to a nursing home or a residential aged care facility, a nursing home in this instance. So I went to a forum. It was hosted by Ashton Hearn, the member for Schubert. It was attended by Dan Cregan, the member for Carvel. And what was fantastic is that it was a medical forum, not a political forum. And the town turned out to come and listen to their doctors, local advocates like Joel Taggart, who had been calling for the government and the LHN to lean in to this issue. The community want... everyone living in the country should want and aim for better regional health services closer to home. We want quality care. But it's certainly important to recognise the work that our frontline doctors, nurses and allied health professionals are offering, and how tired they are from a pretty brutal 2 years managing COVID. So the forum was fantastic. The town came along, lots of questions were asked, and in fact the government have offered to establish a working group for that community to work with its LHN, its health network, to investigate options that allow people to receive emergency care without compromising the on-call requirements of the few working doctors in Gumeracha and, of course, protecting the elderly who are in the nursing home.
Yeah, it's an incredible challenge with the local MPs we talk to across regional South Australia of having emergency services available, and it is a huge demand on doctors and nurses, as you say. We had the Rural Doctors Association recently saying, I'm paraphrasing here, but they're facing an exodus of doctors from regional Australia, particularly those from overseas, because they've now got the scope under the Labor federal Medicare arrangements to work really in a peri-urban area and consider that to be regional. What can a state government do? What would the opposition be saying it should be done by the state government to make sure we've got a medical workforce in regional South Australia?
It's a great question, and I'm watching this issue closely. Of course, the country's just gone through a federal election. The federal Labor government, in its wisdom, has expanded that discretionary area so that OTDs, overseas trained doctors, are allowed to relocate or practice closer to those bigger peri-urban cities. So we're talking about a national challenge where there is a drain. A week into this
that was
expansion.
The term they used, a drain
exactly,
from regional areas.
Exactly. Yep. We saw a brain drain of talent out of South Australia, and then under the Marshall Liberal government, that corrected itself to a net migration. A drain of talent is not a good thing. So in regional health, with my SA hat on, just understanding the challenge that presents to a community where an OTD, an overseas trained doctor, is now, we're seeing evidence a week into this program that doctors, OTDs, are resigning or cancelling or withdrawing their applications to work in smaller country towns because there's an opportunity for them to work closer to the city. We can only infer that's about lifestyle. So nationally, there is a workforce shortage that all levels of government, have been tracking for a number of years now. I think everyone listening would appreciate that as our baby boomers approach retirement, that we're seeing a different type of drain from the health services, which is people wanting to enjoy their life, but we're not seeing that replicated or reproduced at the graduate level. So young people who are going to uni, choosing medicine as a career, and we would encourage as many people as possible to jump into this space. I know it's very rewarding. The challenge is that we're seeing more graduates choose a specialist pathway early in their 6 or 7
rather
year.
than general practice.
Indeed.
Yep.
But at the forum the other night, Dr. Jeff made the point that he is also a specialist. He specialises in general practice.
Yep.
And I think it's a really important point that we celebrate our GPs. We see them as specialists. I think there's a national conversation to have about remuneration to recognise that, because young people are graduating from medicine, specialising in a field, I think because there is more pay. Let's be clear. It pays more.
Yeah, and the pay is one factor. The demands on the job certainly seems to be the overarching challenge for those in rural and remote practice. But how important is infrastructure in terms of the quality of the facilities that they've got to work in? We've talked previously about the Barossa Hospital, for instance, Labor's Limestone Coast Health Pledge, $100 million that Ashton Hearn said we haven't seen a cracker spent so far. How important are good facilities to attract those doctors and nurses to those areas?
I think they're vital, and I think there's two parts to that question. The first part, to wrap up the GP conversation, is they're our local heroes. They work really long hours. If they're supporting a local hospital or emergency department, they're also on call, and they need to manage their clinics. So the business administrative side is that the federal Medicare rebate now is not keeping up with or in line with the cost of living increases that all businesses are having to grapple with. So to run the clinic, it's costing more to run the clinic, which is why we're also seeing in regional towns the end or the deferment of bulk billing. So there are a lot of layers to regional health, and there are certainly complications to the workforce and providing that service to rural and remote areas. The second part to your question about infrastructure, of course, is that we want to see governments continue to invest in all infrastructure, whether that's roads, water security or health. And at the South Australian level, where the state Labor government handed down their budget, talking about their investment in regional health, what they mean by regional health, investment in regional health services is millions of dollars allocated to our big country towns, Mount Gambier, Murray Bridge, Mount Barker, Port Pirie, Port Augusta. And the budget is very clear that where tens of millions of dollars have been allocated to investing in that infrastructure, the completion date is estimated for after the next election. So we're talking about the years 2025, 26, 27. I think for the Flinders Medical Hospital, it's 2029. So in terms of return on investment for a taxpayer, those projects won't be complete for a very long time. And I think I would make an inference then that there's a delay in a full and complementary service to a resident, a resident of regional South Australia. So yes, infrastructure is important. They're big ticket items. I don't begrudge a dollar being spent on regional health. I welcome it, but let's not forget our smaller country towns and the hospitals and the doctor services that we want to see maintained as well.
Yeah, good point, Penny. We'll have to finish there, and I appreciate the deeper dive into all of that, because it's never a simple matter. Sometimes politics does devolve into simple sort of mudslinging, but that's a great work through all of the factors that are in place. So, and we'll talk more about next time we talk to you about what's happening in the electorate of Frome itself. We'd love to talk to you as a local member too, but thanks for joining us today here at the studios.
My pleasure.